reduction means to you, and how do you kind of view the concept of harm reduction?
Well, I think, you know, there, I talk a lot about the continuum of
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And so, you know, harm reduction has its place and
Yeah,
it's needed. Treatment has its place and it's
absolutely.
needed. Recovery support services have their
Sure.
place and they're needed, but it is on a continuum. So, like, not everyone, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, we start everyone at the beginning, but
Yeah.
everyone's in different places in their recovery process. And so I, you know, you know, you traditionally think of all the Narcan and the needle exchange
Right.
and the safe use sites and all of that stuff. Um, when you think of harm reduction, but I agree with you. The just, you know, anything that you can do to pull people into a space that will then help to engage them into treatment and into recovery. So it
Absolutely.
really, it can
S-
be a wide variety. Yeah.
Sure, sure. For me, I know I think of honestly, I feel like harm reduction was my pathway of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
There were brief periods where I would go to 12-step programs. Like I collected a 1 year chip from AA. Of course, there was a lot of NA back in the younger days, but most of
Yeah.
it was just attending meetings. Um, but for me, it was just time was the biggest difference maker. Slowly surrounding myself with different people with different goals, different ambitions, and then getting different things support around me. We call it recovery capital.
Yeah.
Building that identity outside of my addiction. I went to a long-term transitional housing program. And then left that and came here to Southern Illinois rather than going back to my home in South Georgia because I wanted to create a new identity.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of that was my pathway of recovery was creating a new identity. There were periods where I experimented with social drinking. For me, I always wanted to be normal, and I felt like drinking was a part of normal life.
Mm-hmm.
So I include a 4 year relapse where I almost got just as bad as I was previously. But
Yep.
I consider all that in my pathway of recovery because I was growing through that.
Yep.
But if you go just off abstinence, I mean, man, I've had multiple relapses like a lot of people
Yep.
experience.
Yep. And if we place too much emphasis on the relapses, then we can't get over the relapses. We, you know, that sets us back. So just moving forward, I always like, you know, it's not like you have to start all over from day one.
Yeah,
Start from where you were and let's move forward. You learn, actually you're further along because you learned a lot from that relapse. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It always seemed like such a defeating thing to
Yeah.
always have to go back to the first step, to always have to go back to ground zero.
It
And
can be.
I feel like
Definitely.
we don't have to do that anymore. I feel like we've gotten to a place with our understanding of recovery to where we realize that no, you just keep on going, you just keep building. You
Mhm.
identify what your weaknesses were and you build upon your strengths, and relapse isn't the focus, recovery is the focus.
Mhm.
Sometimes relapse happens to be a part of that process.
Yep.
I remember early in treatment, going through treatment, when it got towards the end, that's all the focus was on relapse prevention. It
Mhm.
sets your mind up already to be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to relapse.
Yep.
So how do we create a strength-based environment for people to thrive, focusing on their potential and opportunities rather than their pathologies?
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. And I think that's probably my fear is actually in that just what you said, that idea of, you know, it is so much we at the end of treatment we talk about relapse prevention, we talk about harm reduction techniques, but like that is, you know, that does get it into your mind. So let's talk about, yes, that's a part of it, but it's a part of it for some people.
Yeah,
And again, it's very individualized.
absolutely.
And let's very much focus on the positive, the recovery side of things, and not, while also not like diminishing someone's dis, diminishing someone if someone does relapse it, you
Absolutely.
know.
So you mentioned safe use sites. Like you said, typically, especially around our area, the conversations revolve around Narcan. Occasionally, we'll have conversations about syringe exchanges, which I think needs to be more in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Once I realized how much of the health implications that come along with dirty needles and stuff, it really put it in a new light for me. But the safe use sites, I know that's one of the things, along with safe use utensils, that got a
Mm-hmm.
big, a lot of propaganda last year with the political climate. Same thing with the safe use sites. What's your thought on those? Do you guys have
That's
any
a
of those
very
around
loaded
St.
question.
Louis? Yeah, and I don't want to get into piggyback territory, but
We don't. We don't. I know in St. Louis, needle exchange is something that is, is being talked about, but definitely not safe use sites at this point in time. So yeah, that's really all I know about it. I want to see the I w- I'm I want to see the research too. I'm the kind of person. So the other day I was talking to we do have some, you know, some harm reduction facilities in St. Louis that are giving out needles,
yeah,
and so they are starting to collect data around it to show the success rate of how many people are being engaged in treatment. So I'm always about like let's look at the data and how's it working in other places. And
yeah.
yeah, what do you guys have here? I would
So we don't really have anything.
Yeah, I would assume not much.
Yeah, we have the Narcan distribution, which until recently was very lacking.
Hmm.
Now everybody's distributing Narcan, but still, there's still a problem with access. It seems like for some people.
Yeah.
So, which I noticed there's become a lot more of an open attitude with it, with like open displays in stores and stuff
Yep.
now for people just to take Narcan.
Yep.
Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, Not much along the way of syringe exchanges. I know of one gentleman, and I think that he comes out of the Metro East area that drives around with like a mobile syringe exchange.
Probably.
There's not much information, not much detail out there on that. And that's you're dealing with a lot of largely conservative communities, so
Hmm.
combating that stigma on a community level is very difficult for programs like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and St. Louis is also a very different area than the rest of a lot of Missouri. I mean, most of Missouri is rural.
Yeah.
You have St. Louis and you have Kansas City, so it looks different there than it does in other places for sure. It's crazy the differences from one state, one region to the next.
It is really. There's a stark contrast.
Hmm.
I believe you told me one time, how many peers are there roughly in Missouri? Peer recovery
We
specialists.
have probably, I think, over 1,200 peers in Missouri.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
And
it's great.
so I typically think of, which I mean, I know Missouri is more of a conservative state than what Illinois is.
Hmm.
And you would think of that being some. I was just really surprised to see Missouri ahead of Illinois in that department. But then I was even more surprised to find that Illinois is behind a lot of things, surprisingly enough,
Yeah.
for a state that you would think would really be going in some of those directions. But
So I feel like you've done a really good job of bringing a lot of things to at least your community, and at least from what I hear, it sounds like you've done a lot of good work here. So
yeah, we try to. I mean, I take a lot of pride in starting conversations,
mhm.
and changing conversations and bringing new information. One of the big motivators behind why we started Take Action Today was we felt like our rural communities were inadequately prepared to deal with not only the substance use issues that we have been left with, but also now the burgeoning homelessness issues that we're currently dealing with.
Mhm.
It's just like one wave, like, you know, I liken to what a lot of Southern Illinois, and you're from Missouri, so I mean, I know a lot of rural Missouri communities experience the same thing with a methamphetamine
Yep.
epidemic, and then on the heels of that, you had the opioids, and then, like I say, now we're dealing with just this enormous wave of homelessness where you have small communities like the one I'm from with about 8,000 people might have 150 homeless people living in it.
Mhm.
And there might not be a mental or behavioral health facility in that community or anything outside of the little Baptist church food pantry or clothing room,
Yep.
but those people are stuck in those communities because they can't go anywhere. Oddly enough, a lot of them won't even leave, they'll
Mhm.
choose that tent in their home community more than they'll choose a bed in a treatment program or a homeless shelter 30 minutes down the road.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so how do we develop those resources for those communities?
Mm-hmm.
I think that you guys do a great job at Archway. I want you to tell us a little bit about Archway and how you kind of got into that. But I know that you guys draw a lot of attention to the subject. You guys are constantly doing events and doing things, marketing things, not only on a local, like St. Louis level, but regionally, Midwest, and nationally with some of your work with the MPRA. If you would kind of go into some of those things and kind
Yeah.
of tell us a little bit about that stuff.
I'll give you a little overview of all of it, and then feel free to ask some more questions. So, Archway was founded in 2020. It's 10 years. It celebrated its big 10-year anniversary last year in 2022.
Nice.
So it was started by my husband, actually,
Okay,
John,
that's cool.
and his mom and dad. And so they really, John struggled with opiate use disorder. Him and his parents really just wanted to help other people, other families who were experiencing it. So they started Archway, and that's what they've been doing. But I always say we do a combination of education, peer support, financial assistance, and workforce development now for peers. So we have a speaker series. We do things like this, or we present at conferences, present at events, all that fun stuff. A lot of like stigma reduction, really teaching people about I call it the realities of substance use. So a lot of people with lived experience, like me, like you, caregivers who have their lived experience on their side of the continuum, and then just science of addiction, symptoms, and all that fun stuff. We do initial peer support, so we are not a treatment agency. We don't bill for any services or anything like that. So we get on the phone with people, let them know they're not alone, have very genuine, compassionate conversations with them, and then guide them to all the wonderful resources that are out there. Because when you're in it, you don't realize that there's a million resources to help you out across the continuum. So making sure that they have, the treatment they need and the recovery support services that they need, or housing, or whatever it is, just making sure that they're connected. And then financial assistance. So we provide, this last year, we provided $70,000 in financial assistance to...
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and it's built up over the years. So we have been consistently Archway, before I started, they were giving about $50,000. Obviously that grew. I don't know when they got to that $50,000 mark, but our goal is to continue to increase that as we continue to grow and fundraise. And that financial assistance covers a variety of things. So it can cover treatment and counseling services and peer services. A lot of times it covers recovery housing. Just $500 to get someone through the doors of a recovery house. And then I love RCOs, so anything that RCOs do, trying to, just connect people to, increase access, I guess, to all the different resources that are out there. So, and I guess we can also we can talk about the grants that Archway gave to Take Action Today too. So, because we look for those kind of innovative, creative approaches to combating the addiction epidemic, I would say. So even things like, for you all, this podcast, helping to fund some of the resources so that you can do it. We just, anything that gets the recovery voice out there, we support. Anything that shows what long-term recovery looks like, we support. Anything that starts the conversation, like you said, we have to just have those conversations. So that's that was one of the grants you guys got, and then the showers as well, which you can talk a little bit more about than I can. But
how many grants do you think you guys issue in a year's time?
I think we did 68 grants
Wow,
last year. Yeah,
that's impressive.
to a variety
That's a
of,
lot of assistance for a
yeah.
lot of different. Now, when you count that financial assistance, are you counting your grants in that? And are you also do you count when you give people say assistance to get into recovery homes?
Yep.
Is that a grant
Yep,
or
it's all
gotcha?
all in that same bucket. Mostly because you know, we give to the organization rather than to the individual.
Sure, I
That's
got
just
you. Okay,
because
I
of
got
the
you.
nature of the
Good
disease.
smart doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. One of the things that I loved about receiving the letters, I mean, obviously getting told that we were going to receive a grant from Archway, but the fact that it was always tied to a little benefit fund, either in somebody's honor
hmm
or in a family's name or something.
Yep.
And it really just kind of added that extra little bit of meaning to some of it. And I really thought that was a neat concept. How did you guys come up with that?
That is our Archway Hope Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was just I was not actually that's Dan and Jan, our chairman and our secretary of the board. So they came up with that program and they've done a great job of building it out. So I can tell you kind of what it looks like today. We have close to 100 Hope Fund sponsors.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Man, you guys are
Yeah.
fundraising super nice.
We love fundraising. So, I mean, and it's a variety of people. So it's individuals in recovery. We have hope funds that are in honor of people we've lost to addiction. We have families who have started it that have been impacted. Some who just appreciate the work that we're doing and want to continue to help fund the work that we're doing. But also businesses, other nonprofits, just a variety of people have started Hope Funds. And really, yes, it is all to help, fundraise for the cause, but more so than that, it's also to show that there is a huge recovery, like there's a huge community behind people.
Absolutely. I think that's what's it, that
Right.
support.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I can imagine on some levels, especially for families who have experienced loss, there's a little bit of healing for that, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that these things are being done in their loved ones' honor.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really neat thing. Um, how much trouble has it been? You guys have been doing this for 10 years. Did you have experience in fundraising and not-for-profit management before this?
I did not.
Okay.
So
So
it's been a journey
it's
for
been a
me.
learning process,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
Is this where you imagined yourself 5, 10 years ago?
I did not. I did
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I was a teacher for 6 years. I taught seventh grade English,
Oh, wow.
just so you know. My degree is in English literature, which is crazy. But I got brought into Archway to help write the Archway book. So I was brought in, for my writing expertise. And then I just learned everything I could about Archway and about the family and about everything. So, and then I eventually moved my way up the ladder a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Archway also, for the first 7 years, it was completely volunteer run. So no one was
Wow, that's
paid.
pretty recent.
Yeah. And so when I came in, it was just starting to be moved from a volunteer run to a staff run
That's
organization.
awesome. Were you their first hire?
I was not their first hire. My husband did get paid a little bit when
Okay.
he was CEO. He moved on because he got a job with Alkermes, the pharmaceutical company that makes Vivitrol. I
Okay.
don't know if, but so he moved on to that job. He gets to talk about recovery all day in that too, and I get to run Archway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got the better end of
Yeah.
things. He
It
sounds
sounds
like
more
he's in a
fun.
lot. Yeah, that's what I
He's
was gonna
like
say.
in corporate world. I'm in recovery. I
Yeah,
think he
you're out
misses
jet
it
setting at
sometimes.
all the leadership conferences. And
Yeah.
I see you. I mean, I'll get it. I'll like reach out to you, and it'll be a while before I hear from you. And I'm like, man, this woman is all over the place. You're like, oh my
we're
gosh, I'm sorry. I just got to this.
we're moving all over the place now.
Well, you
It
guys
seems
have
like.
grown a lot. It seems like, and you
Yeah.
talk about it in the last few years. I was the first person hired in our organization, and it was neat coming to the same thing, which obviously we weren't in this near that long, but going from that all volunteer to full time and just seeing things kind of take go in a different, not a different direction, but on just a different level.
Yep.
It's like a whole nother level of commitment. Things really start to flourish and thrive after that,
Mm-hmm.
which we were doing really good before that. But man, just everything was just really kicked into high gear.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they lay the ground. They've done such a good job. The board, the staff, the volunteers,
Absolutely.
everyone with ARCHway, they've done such a good job to get us here. And I'm just trying to take us and then
you
keep
feel a lot of
keep
pressure
moving
in
it forward.
that?
There is a lot of pressure. I also work with my husband's family. I work with
Yeah,
my
that's what-
in-laws.
that's what I'm saying.
Sometimes it's a lot of pressure, but it is, I think I have a closer relationship with my in-laws than most people probably
That's
do with their
awesome.
in-laws. And
That's good.
I love it. And, yeah, sometimes it's a lot of pressure, but it has gotten, I can't tell you, I do think like I feel the support from the board, from the other staff that we have now, from just the people who are involved. It is I feel very supported. It's very, very cool.
I bet it is. It
Yeah.
is really good to feel supported. It makes you feel empowered, really, to do your job.
Yeah.
How big is y'all's board of directors?
We have 10 on our
people.
board.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Are they
Yeah.
pretty involved with things? And they help you out with a lot of fundraising?
They are pretty involved. Just in a variety of different ways. Some do some more fundraising, some do more education. They're on their
Are they pretty
committees.
hands-on with doing things and being involved with stuff? Not like hands-on, like micromanaging you, but just
Yeah.
like wanting to be involved.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like my board members and some of them expressed it to me that they feel like they're watching other people do the stuff that they wanted to do, and so I have to, kind of, make sure they feel like they're a part of what we're doing.
Yep.
Because there's not too many of them that get involved. I wish more of them would get involved in doing things.
Yeah. I think probably because board members have been on the road on this ride for so long,
Sure.
they are more involved. I also I stay in touch with them on a lot of different things. So each one, kind of plays a different role in the organization, and I just kind of touch base with them. But I agree, it is great to have the board members present at events. It's great to have them. They have a wide range of knowledge and
Absolutely.
experience. So a lot of mentors that I get from them.
I bet our board members are not very involved, but it's also a good thing, but a bad thing. Like, they're very supportive of a lot of things, but
Hmm.
they don't really. They leave me alone. Like, we've been through the last year's we've had some pretty harrowing moments with funding.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you rely on grants or when you rely on other people's money. You can have some harrowing moments.
It's
But
a challenge. I'm glad that we don't have. We are privately funded. Grants are out there for
Yeah.
sure, and it might be a road we go down as well. But I can only imagine not. I feel like I don't have to worry about it as much, but there's a lot of funding out there right now.
there is a lot of
We got to
funding
use
out
it
there
for
right
the
now.
the stuff
Absolutely.
that's needed.
We're trying to get as much of it as we
Mhm.
can, man. We're trying to hoover all this stuff up. Well, and we're very fortunate because, especially as RCOs go, we're the only one in our area.
Hmm.
And then also too, man, we work our butts off, so we've kind of got ourselves positioned in a leadership position, and rightfully so. And so we try to maintain that, and it keeps things kind of coming to us, or it keeps us in the limelight of things. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I was so blessed to have somebody explain to me early on, with working with grants, is that it's all about building relationships.
Hmm.
So I've made that a top priority with everything I do. Try to build good relationships, with collaborative relationships, not just a hey, how are you doing relationships, but hey, let's work together, let's work on something, let's build something together.
Yep.
Kind of relationships. And finding more people to collaborate with. And that's one of the things that I think I love about it. Seems like you, similar to myself, as much as of an executive director, you're out building these coalitions, like the MPRA. If you would, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is and kind of how you got into that? Because I noticed
Yeah.
on your signature, you're the founder of it.
Yeah. So, let's go. I can go back to the beginning. So NPRA, or the National Peer Recovery Alliance, really, it's actually started with just myself and a few peers in St. Louis. We started a very small like coalition of peers in St. Louis, and that's because we were working as peers and we felt like there were a few things that needed to change. Like,
Sure.
peers needed a little bit more training and development. They needed some career pathways or ladders, ability to get a little bit higher pay at some point in their career, and just found that like we were our best advocates, and we needed to get out there and share our voice, not just for the peer workforce, but also for the people we're trying to serve, and make sure that they got access to everything that they needed to get better. And so we started there with just like a small St. Louis based like peer coalition. And at some point, I just said, look, we need to replicate this on a national level, because ARCHway is a national nonprofit. So we're connected to a lot of different states. And so I reached out and started to pull together a team of peers from across the country to do the same thing, to advocate for peers and the people that we're serving, and then to also like really grow and develop and build this peer workforce that is peer, like I said, peer services are a best practice. So we have to cultivate that best practice and really elevate the workforce. So that is, that's kind of how it started. It's exciting to see.
So how long have you been working on that?
So 2020 we started having meetings, and I'm not sure when you started joining in. Now that I think about it,
probably a little bit right after that.
yeah.
And, I mean, and it might have been then, because it seems like that coalition has had people in it. Like, one of the things that I suffer from an insecurity or an inferiority complex.
Okay.
So I oftentimes in those spaces I see myself with people as like these people, advocates, and I don't see myself in that realm sometimes. But like I think from the minute I've been in there, I guess maybe from y'all's previous connections with ARCHway and stuff, but it seemed like there's always been a really strong group with some strong states represented.
Yep.
How many states are represented in that?
So there are 5 active state affiliates,
Okay.
But there are about 17 different states now represented throughout, our mailing list, on our meetings and such, and hopefully more states emerging as state affiliates. Illinois being one of them. We're getting ready for that.
I'm definitely pushing for it.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier, we're going to. I'm going to Arkansas after this to sit with our friend and kind of shadow some of Arkansas's state offices.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many peers he said that they have down there in Arkansas, but he came to our statewide recovery advisory committee meeting a few months ago and just kind of blew everybody away, which, I mean, he's got a magnanimous personality.
Yeah.
So he can kind of be like that, but it just sounded so advanced what they had done, like beyond anything that we thought about over here in Illinois. So what the hope is that we go down there and it's all part of this larger process. A few weeks ago, we had our statewide committee, and I proposed that we form a work group.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to form about a 6-month-long work group, and at the end of it, and this trip down there is a part of it, what I'm hoping to do is propose to our state these ideas and these guidelines for infrastructure that our state needs to implement, or hopefully implement one day.
Yeah.
And hopefully move those conversations along, kind of similar to what you did, and having the NPRA be a part of that, because providing that unified voice for peers.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois right now, so we have the 2 different credentials. We have the recovery support specialist and the peer recovery support specialist, and they're kind of competing, but they're not competing, but they're kind of competing, but they're not competing. And then on top of that, this year the state invested a lot of money into about 11 different universities across the state, starting training programs, which is great because it gets a lot of training out there, high quality, good training.
Yep.
And I think that the end goal is to develop a statewide curriculum. That's what I'm hoping the end goal is. But right now things are kind of disjointed, and there's no real cohesiveness. And one of the things that I told the subcommittee was that with our population, when we burn out in this field, it's either mental health crisis or it's relapse for
Yep.
us. So we have to make sure that if we are going to capitalize on these people's lived experience, to make sure it stays in the realm of empowerment rather than exploitation,
Yeah.
to make sure that we have these structures like these career ladders and ethics review boards that are all led by people in recovery.
Yep.
And right now, our state doesn't have that peer representation yet. There are, and one of the things that I've kind of had some back and forth discussions with people about is there are a lot of people in the field who have lived experience who are clinicians, and that's a different thing than being a peer specialist.
Right.
You know, in my mind, it's a totally different thing, and convincing some other people, and like it's not to insult people that you're not a peer specialist, but I just feel like we come from a different place as peer specialists.
Exactly. And there should be two. I mean, the two can work really well together.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they need to. They should.
Yeah. Because not everyone, you know, in a lot of different ways they can work together, whether it's like the peer, kind of reinforcing like the need for clinical services or
Yes.
counseling services, or like lowering their guard a little bit when they go into to counseling, or it's like they're not ready for that. They need that one-on-one peer support, or they need both of those right now at the same time, because they're two different. They really are two different. They have two different roles and responsibilities.
Absolutely.
So.
I love the way you described it earlier about the continuum.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like, and I know I'm starting to hear that in more conversations, but I really feel like that's the way that we really need to start viewing these things more. They're not linear. They're definitely not linear. And I've heard people referring to them as a bit of a spectrum, but they're kind of not on a spectrum either. It's just on this continuum that moves from one side to the other and in different ways, on different days sometimes.
Yeah.
But it takes all the parts working together rather than in the past we've had disjointed prevention efforts, treatment efforts. How do we tie all that together and then tie primary care in and housing and everything into that?
Yep. Because it really, it doesn't. Bottom line is it takes lots of things to recover. So medications is not the, that's one thing on this whole continuum of resources that are out there in order to get better. Or I should say treatment. Treatment, we can't get better with treatment and treatment alone. We need social supports, we need housing, we need, our recovery community organizations, we need all the things.
Absolutely. Have you ever heard of the Recovery Research Institute?
I don't know if I've heard of the Recovery Research
Institute. I started attending some webinars from them, and I want to say they're probably, and it seemed like a pretty large scientific base, trying to do. I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on in this field, in social work and psychology and all that stuff, through evidence-based practice or through the peer review process.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of research. I'm not sure how peer reviewed all of it is. But they have a lot of it out there. They put out a lot of studies and stuff. One of the things that I love to talk about, they put out this graph that shows recovery happening on about a 15 to 18 year process rather than being just one 30 or 60 or 90-day stint in treatment. So you can't keep people in treatment that long. You really probably shouldn't even keep people in outpatient services that long. So how do we support them across this continuum where they go from detox to back in their community, and can be there when they need it, and not just during a 1 hour window, Monday through Friday?
Yep.
And then like you say, it does all fit together because one of the things I kind of tell people, and I think it comes off a little bit arrogant. That's not what I'm trying to do, but I telling people, clinicians sometimes, that we're the people that make your services effective because we promote the engagement. It's not that we're doing anything special, but we're promoting the engagement. We're getting them thinking about it.
Yep.
We use a lot of motivational interviewing. Getting people to make their own decisions about stuff is far more powerful than somebody telling them what that they need to do to fix things.
Yeah. And there's there is something special, something magical about just feeling like you're right in front of someone who understands exactly what you've been through or exactly what you're going through. You know, I don't know if there's a scientific study out there that says that, but I think anyone can understand the need for peer support when you're going through something traumatic or something difficult. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that connection, and now you hear. Well, what's funny is now you hear about peer support in every field. It's like every field's getting into it. You know, you hear people talking
Yep.
about peer support in schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, peer support. I mean, obviously in the workplace. I
Yep.
mean, one of the things that I talked with a lady earlier this year about was a program. It's called Recovery Workplace. I'm gonna butcher this. I think it's Recovery Ready Workplace Illinois.
Okay.
You know, and the
Mm-hmm.
idea is to put supportive peer services in the workplace,
Yep.
not like in a workplace like our workplace as an RCO, but in say a factory setting,
Yep.
where you had somebody that people could come to and talk about these issues in a non-judgmental, non-stigmatizing way.
Yep.
You know, and especially for a region like ours where there's not a lot of mental health services, these things can really support people in ways that you just don't expect.
Yeah. I talk about that as I would love to see peers both in and outside of the continuum of care. So,
Yes.
like, yes, they should be in treatment and housing and recovery community organizations, but they should also be in EAP programs and businesses and, you know, unions. We work a lot with our labor unions in St. Louis, and they would love to have peers that are hired within the labor unions to be able to work with their laborers, because that is you know, I probably they have some of the highest numbers of people who struggle with substance use and mental health disorders
I
in
bet
the laborers.
that blue collar labor.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in the coal mines for 11 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hard work. It's hard on your body. Just and the stress that comes along with it, along with financial stress and everything. It's hard for people in that field.
Yep. Exactly.
And I
So,
see where that would be a good fit with union jobs
mm-hmm.
because they do offer people a lot of supportive services, especially treatment services. You know,
Yep.
for union members that deal with those types of things.
Exactly. So they need to be everywhere. Schools would be great. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents call me and their kids are struggling with
Yeah,
mental health and substance use. It's not to the point of needing treatment,
yeah,
but there are no resources other than to tell them to go, bring their kid to a therapist. It's like, well, I saw a therapist when I was 17 too, but I continued to spiral for a few years afterwards. So, like, there just needs to be, if kids had that peer support from an early age, whether it might not be another adolescent that's their age, but it's someone that they can
someone
identify
that's
with
been
and work
there.
with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That they can make that connection with. I have people because my trouble started as a juvenile,
Mm-hmm.
so I have people all the time coming to me trying to get me to talk to other young people.
Yeah.
And I remember from a young age, I think I was 14 probably the first time I sat across from a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think it did squat for
Yeah.
me any. So Emily, I went to a treatment center one time as a juvenile for 18 months as a kid.
Wow.
You know, constantly around psychologists, people with crazy degrees, just doing all kinds of things, and it was better than the alternative that I could have been dealing with.
Yeah.
But in the end, I didn't even have that much of a substance use issue before that. But because I'd been in a lot of trouble, they chose to do that with me, which was in partly part of my privilege because I've done some stuff I should have been in a lot of trouble, but I got some extra breaks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I got 4 months before I was in trouble again by the time I got done with all that.
Yeah.
4 months, which is so hard for young people. I mean, to try to get, I don't want to say get through to them because I remember people always asking me, why did you do this? And I was like, I don't know. And I legit didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But if you had that person that you could go to in some of those situations, it is very hard with young people, I will say. And it's scary too, seeing the higher potency of drugs these days. Like, it can be one and done.
Oh man,
It is.
especially with the synthetics. I mean, and I don't know how Missouri was with like the K2 and the bath salts, but I know here they were really bad.
Certain
Kids were into
areas,
them
yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
And like you say, man, that stuff will mess you up.
Yeah. It is. It's a crazy. I think I've said it's a crazy world that we live in a million times in the last week, but
It's always been crazy. And synthetics to me are just making things even crazier.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I feel like we're not even dealing with like drugs anymore. We're just dealing with experiments and what they do to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and why we continue to make, which I guess there's reason why we continue to make stronger and stronger pain medications. But it's tough out there for young people, and there's not the services.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things two of the things that I have found really confusing, and I guess it shouldn't be confusing if you study history, but there's a lot of people that talk about the need for services for women and the need for services for children, and then there's still so little out there, but everybody readily acknowledges, and the
that we
field
need them.
is dominated by women.
Yeah,
you know,
that is interesting to think about it that way.
And so one of the things that we hope through peer support to be able to do is to provide those services to rural communities where there aren't the other workers.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about, or like I mentioned, supporting people for 15 to 18 years is tough.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of ups and downs through that. I know for me, there were a lot of ups and downs. Stressors. We found out one time that my daughter got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. About a year into it, I lost my job in the coal mine. And I lost my insurance that we had always had. That was always really good.
Yeah.
And we had to get on the marketplace insurance and get on, and get on the and on that stuff. And then she had a thing with her diabetes one time, and she got admitted to a hospital, and ended up insurance not covering it. And we ended up eating like $25,000 in bills.
My gosh.
And it you talk about a triggering event. Which, I mean, for the person in recovery, stress is one of the biggest challenges that we face, and being able to manage that across years, teaching people those skills, having community groups and peer support is so vital to that.
And another reason why like NPRA exists and why we are providing some peer support for peer supporters, because there are we could get into a conversation about length of recovery time when getting into the workforce, but like you said, like it can take years to get to that full recovery, and you're still going to always face some challenges, but peers in the workplace need, a certain level of peer support. They need resources. They need supervision. They need the education and the guidance and the things to be successful. And they need that even more when they're, newer in their recovery. And so providing some of that along the way.
And I think that the neatest part about all of it is that along the way, you create good jobs for people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has been the coolest dynamic of what we do here at Take Action Today. Is I never imagined us being a job generator. We came into this trying to put resources in our community, and what we ended up doing was creating good jobs for people who a lot of times through our behavior in the past end up limited in our wage earning capacity. I know for myself, that's how I got in the coal mines, which I made good money in the coal mines, but I had a GED education until this year or last year.
Congrats on that, by the way.
Oh,
That's
man,
exciting.
I'll tell you what. I've just recently got to the place where I don't cry when I talk about it, because it was like a lifelong dream that I never thought I'd be able to achieve. But having a GED is very limiting in your wage earning.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're a convicted felon, or you're previously incarcerated, you get all these strikes against you, and then you end up in a bad neighborhood and low income housing. Not that there's anything bad about that stuff, but it's just a more stressful environment for people than is healthy.
Yeah, and stress does lead back to active use and relapses and stuff. So it is about putting people back into, you know, getting people back into society and active members of society. That really is, I mean, we do need to focus on that in, you know, when we talk about that continuum, like we really do want people to thrive or to flourish. I think those are some of the words that are being used right now. We want people to get to that happy, joyous, and free life in recovery where they're working, where they're productive, where they feel like they have a purpose and they're confident. And, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, the issues aren't going to be there. Things aren't going to pop up, but it doesn't have to totally throw you off anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's all about, and I think that this is what I love about where the recovery community's at now. It's about being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not about being sober. Being sober is a part of being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm one of those people. I have this somewhat theory that I kind of work off of. You know, being an early psychology student, you know, I knew everything about psychology. But I come up with this theory about how back again about viewing substance use on a continuum or on a spectrum between healthy and unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that when people are healthy, they tend to have healthy relationships with things like substances. You know, so people can use substances in a healthy manner. Not that I could, but when people are healthy, and it's not just about substances, but it's about anything. They do everything in a healthy manner. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we support people and get them back to that? And previously in recovery, it was limited to just talking about substance use. Nowadays, we talk about everything. We talk about so much self-care, not only with our staff, but with all of our participants and stuff.
Yep.
How are you managing stress? You know, do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you do these other types of things to help mitigate the effects of that stress? And it's all about creating a healthier individual.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think it is a good focus to have. I mean, I know that like I like me today, I cannot use drugs or alcohol. That does not make me the best version of myself. It does not make me healthier. Like there's no really benefit to my body in any way, I don't think. So that's just that is part of being healthy and part of being well and feeling good mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the fun things.
Absolutely. What's the old joke they used to say in AA that every time I drank, I broke out in handcuffs?
Yeah. Yes, I love that one.
I know, right? AA has some of the best cliches and sayings.
Mm-hmm.
I still tell people, man, I feel like the Big Book in AA is one of the best books. Behind the Bible, it's probably the second best book ever written.
Yeah, I mean, it has helped so many people. You know, I was actually more of an Al-Anon person.
Yeah.
I come from a family of addicts, alcoholics, codependents, a lot of codependency in my background. So it Al-Anon did help me with a lot of that stuff. So
that's something that I wish we could get started. And man, trying to find people to break into and get. So like I said, we have 3 resource centers, and kind of our hopes is that we will be able to foster more meetings in those types of places and having Al-Anon. Making the focus, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, not just on the drug addict, you know, but on the rest of the family and everybody, because
doesn't sound bad at all.
Just the piecemeal part of just trying to work on the individual doesn't fix things,
right?
You know, and if we are going to, I think about it almost in a utilitarian sort of way, you know. In our current format, we're wasting resources because putting people in short-term treatments. They don't have the wraparound services that we know they need, and then we put them back in the same environment again.
Exactly.
Most likely in the same community with no resources and no support. And to, you know, take a phrase from probably AA or NA, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. You know, so we have to change things up. I'm hoping, and I feel like RCOs are a part of that revolution, a part of that change.
I agree.
I love being in an RCO. I love doing this. Never would have dreamed of this 3 or 4 years ago. Never on the table. Never an idea. I was very fortunate. I was in a psych high International Honor Society meeting, and Patty McCarthy was like a guest speaker in there
Yeah.
talking about RCOs. So we started our organization after a homeless gentleman passed away in our little community.
Mm.
We had Thanksgiving dinner. We had served about 100 hot meals and gave out a bunch of resource packages and clothing and stuff like that. But afterwards, we wanted to do more, and we didn't know what we wanted to do. And if it hadn't been for hearing Patty McCarthy speak, there's no telling what Take Action Today would have been.
Yeah.
But I heard RCO and heard her describe it, and I was like, that is what my community needs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's so much flexibility with what we can do, trying to talk to people. You know, we do direct service. We do a lot of advocacy. We do a lot of education. We do a lot of service and a lot of training. You know, there's so many different things. Not to get back to something you said earlier, was that ARCHway does peer support. So you guys actually do direct service with people?
You know, we do. So we do what I like to call initial peer support. So we have the same kind of one-on-one peer conversations, but we don't like, our goal is to get people to the treatment and recovery services, to get people to peer services that are more long-term, I would say. So rather, we just don't have the capacity at this point in time to hire as many peers as I would like to hire.
What is your staff size?
We have, so right now I'm one of 2 full-time employees.
Okay.
And then we're about to bring on a development coordinator to help with some of our fundraising efforts.
Always a bonus.
Yeah, that's wonderful. She'll be part-time, and then we also have 4 part-time peers, but mainly to help with the development of peer coalitions or NPRA affiliates in other states.
That's
So,
excellent.
yeah.
We are getting into, which in Illinois, we have two structures. We have the RCOs and we have Ross.
Mm-hmm.
So we are actually going to start 2 Ross councils this year. We've been trying to do something similar to that called Southern Illinois Recovery Network.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really excited because that's why I say there's just so many different things in this field that people can do.
Yep.
And people with lived experience, people in recovery, have that special ingredient, you know, to make these things successful.
Yep.
And
that passion and drive, and it's
absolutely,
you can't find it too many other places.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, man. Like I say, seeing people realize that they can make a job out of this and make a living out of this, and a career, and have a good career too, you know.
Yep.
It's really neat because you see people take off with it and see people start seeing themselves in a different light. I think that's been one of the neatest thing about what we done here at Take Action Today is we've painted a different picture of recovery. You know, we've changed that conversation of what people see recovery as, to where I was telling somebody the other day, sometimes you enter spaces nowadays and it's almost like you're a superstar because you're a person with lived experience.
Yeah.
And that's new for us.
Yep. It hasn't always been that way. It is crazy.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah. And that's another reason, you know, NPRA is around, is to make it stay that way, because we can only, you know, sometimes it seems like peers are being certified so quickly, they're getting into the workforce so quickly, and then they either, you know, leave the workforce to get another job that's higher paying, but we want that workforce to like grow and develop and be sustained, and, you know, continue to create those jobs for peers, for people in recovery. So I think that, you know, that is really another reason we want it to stay that way. We want peers to walk into the room and be celebrated for their recovery, and for all the work that they're doing to help other people recover.
Absolutely. It's a valuable asset, you know, what they have in that experience. What is the average, how long does it take to train a peer in Missouri?
So you guys have a more robust training. Yes. You guys got a lot going on. But we have a week long training. There's an application. We don't have specific supervision hours. Now there is an advanced credential now for peer support in Missouri, which is a little bit more intense, and it's through ICRC, so it offers reciprocity from one state to the next. But we don't have the same. Yeah, it gives you so you can become a peer in Missouri, Illinois, Florida, well, any ICRC state without having to retest, I guess.
If you can use reciprocity and anonymity without fumbling your words,
yeah,
you're in good shape.
Yeah, we got it going on.
I found a lot of people have trouble with benevolence.
Benevolence.
Similar to you guys were talking about all the financial assistance you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
We have a general benevolence fund here, so we help a lot of people in recovery. For one, we do what you're talking about. People that are going to recovery homes, we might provide that deposit and that first week's rent to get them started.
That's awesome.
Give them some supplies and stuff to go somewhere, and then give them transportation to there sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's to help people. We've helped people pay off fines so they could get their driver's license back. Pay for like evaluation fees, Secretary of State fees, and stuff like that. Getting water turned on. Anything that typically doesn't get covered under a grant, because you can't say, "Hey, I'm paying somebody's water with this grant money," But people in recovery need those things.
Yep.
When you are struggling to come back from a dark hole, $150 water deposit is a huge hurdle.
It can make a big difference.
So I think we've been able to since April of last year. I think that we've given away, I think, somewhere around $7,000. I think in benevolence funds like that.
That's awesome. Do those funds come from the community, or do they come from?
They're all community funded.
That's awesome.
So that's what we do with all of our community funding that we raise. It goes right into our general benevolence fund, and what we do, because it's not, like I say, most of our grants cover like salaries and stuff like that. We can't get much money for program development. So anywhere we can find a few dollars for little stuff, because that's what people in recovery need.
Yep. And keep ARCHway in mind for that kind of stuff too, because like I can't pay for someone's water bill, but that's something that we could give you guys a grant to be used for those barriers, because really it's all about figuring out what are the needs in the community and how can we help overcome those challenges, those barriers to keep people on that journey.
Absolutely. And I feel like we use those funds more responsibly. Like, there are other charitable organizations that give out, financial assistance like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, because for one thing, it's not that we require people to be participants, but you have to be in recovery. So I feel like we use those funds a little more responsibly, rather than just enabling people. And I feel like we border on that sometimes with good intentions. We deal with a mental health provider, and they have like a petty cash fund at one of our resource centers that their engagement specialists would just hand out, and we're like, we don't do cash. So, it's just
that's how we do.
Thing.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, I have really appreciated this conversation. I'm so thankful, one, to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, it's exciting.
But two, like you said, we've been talking for, a while now, man, and kind of seeing things grow with what you're doing. You guys have been a big part of what we do at Take Action Today, but big supporters of ours, so any of the work that we do, man, you guys sharing that with us. And we appreciate you guys. We appreciate all the work you do. I know you're all over the country, going to different places, spreading the peer gospel.
Yep.
And the recovery.
You're coming along. We're gonna get you.
We are gonna do that. That's a state affiliate for NPRA is one of the things that we're gonna propose to do. Which, I mean, I don't see that being a hurdle or anything.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming out.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it too. I love seeing, finally getting to meet you in person and kind of see the actual location. So,
absolutely,
very cool.
Yeah, maybe sometimes you come. Maybe some other time you come down, and we'll thank you so much. Hopefully soon we'll have some recovery housing we can go off.
Yeah. That's
our goal of 2023. We're going to try to open up 2 houses.
I remember you saying that. That's awesome.
Yep.
That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Is there funding out there for recovery housing in Illinois?
There is.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
absolutely there is.
Missouri's kind of lucky in that it seems like there's more funding for recovery housing. Like Florida, there's like no money for recovery housing. There's just, it varies from one state to the next, what's out there. So
yeah, and that's what's both interesting, beautiful, and frustrating about the United States is each state's different.
Yep.
You know, and one thing can mean one thing in one state and a different thing in another.
Yeah. And we're bringing them all together, all the voices together with NPRA. So it's exciting. I mean, I think this year will be about having some of those tough conversations with NPRA. Like, how can we, get on the same, have those conversations, develop our messaging around those conversations, and then share like a unique, pure, authentic voice around it. So it'll be cool.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing it.
Woo.